So, hey, I'm Mark Marijnissen, and you are?
I'm Diana Hu.
Yeah, and we are hosting Empathy Café for I think 7 or 8 times already. And yeah, so what are we doing, Diana, on the Empathy Café?
Yeah, so we're holding this space as a practice group for people to come and practice listening and speaking skills. So it creates a safe space for people to speak their mind and being listened to without distraction.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also good to go back to the roots because we have this kind of shared intention, shared passion we really like. And let me put up the slides on this one so we can show it. Uh, and let's speak to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's giving and receiving the gift of compassion to make life more wonderful and to cultivate more capacity for connection and compassion in the world. So, yeah, why is it? How did we get to the sentence?
Well, I think that we find the world is filled with a lot of stressful events and situations we're in, and a lot of times, it makes me, it makes me feel like, hey, what can I do, to cultivate, a little bit, nicer things such as, compassion, connection with people. And I think that, I think the question, the big question is, how do I contribute to, the world? And I think the answer is, you indirectly you can. And if we can, cultivate these kind of compassion in us and in other people around us, I think, we will feel much more at ease with, what's going on around us, and, create more peaceful living situations around our circumstances. So I think that's where this, our intentions come from.
Yeah, and for me, it's like if I look back at my kind of work or just what I enjoy most, it's like I really like working with people, and sometimes there's this like judgment or like this harshness or this kind of thing, and then when you have this compassion, it kind of melts away. It creates this weight off your shoulders feeling or more space. And when I see this happening with others or I have this myself, I just feel so much more kind of grounded and alive and this kind of more human, and I really enjoy that feeling. And yeah, that is something I really like to have more in the world of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel the same, here, that a lot of times, I feel, some feelings about towards something, happening. And if at the moment I have more peace in me, I can look at that thing and be like, oh, it's okay, like it's, it's part of life. This is okay. Versus if I'm not in a place where I felt, like I'm being hurt, a lot of time I will react with more of, frustration or whatever it is. And then, you perpetuate that negative emotion in the world. So I think, with this space that, we want to, create more of this, connectiveness within us. And, that's what we want to perpetuate instead of the, negative emotions.
Yeah, it just I guess it just pays to do the work, and then the kind of the inner work of translating your own kind of stress and judgments and stuff to vent it, to get it out, get more clarity on it. And then to do the work with people listening makes it so much easier to, work through whatever you're feeling and get to a more place of inner peace. So I guess that's the gift of both of them. Like as a speaker, you get heard and you get to work through whatever is alive in you. As a listener, you contribute this to the other person and you kind of learn the skill of listening. And we both have a background in nonviolent communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you learn it, or do you have any specific moment where you're like, wow, this is cool stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I started it back in 2015. I went on a retreat, and that was kind of deep dive into nonviolent communication for like 4 days. And I didn't know too much about it, but I could just see it. I'm like, wow, people come alive in using yeah, these skills. And I'm just like, I'm fascinated, and I don't know how come, I never learned any of these in school or whatever, but it was like, wow, this is very powerful things. And from that point on, I've definitely used it a lot in life, and I've talked to friends about it and got a few of my friends learning about it, and everybody has been like, wow, that really changed, the relationship of me and my mother around, or something, significant like that. So I definitely feel like, wow, yeah, this is a really some skill that, hopefully, everybody get to learn and be more patient with each other and be able to, understand each other more.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember going to one workshop, and the person who was listened to was so hurt and so touched, so coming alive, and just started crying. I was like, well, I thought I was a good listener, but this is really next level stuff. I was really amazed by how, by simple listening and being with this person, yeah, she could open up and feel heard and really be touched and all that. So I decided to learn it, and I started with a practice group, and that grew out. Like, as soon I became like a teacher in the practice group because I knew the most, so I was the one finding exercises. So I started giving workshops and all that. And at some point, I got kind of stuck with it, because nonviolent communication, for some people, is really this present, body-based, warm, compassionate stuff, and others teach it more in kind of this theoretical way, like there are 4 steps and we have to follow them.
Right.
And I noticed myself when I was teaching that when I teach it in this mechanical way, people get into their head like there's this right way of communicating, it's non-violent, and this bad way of communicating, it's the Jekyll way, and what are the steps? And it's really was not the same experience of this emotional experience of really being heard. So that's like, you invited me, shall we host an empathy cafe? And I was saying, yeah, I want to do that, but I don't want to teach.
Yeah.
So yeah, so could you share something about our format that we're using for this empathy cafe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even though we have the nonviolent communication background, that is not a requirement for anybody to come and participate. We really only ask you to, when you show up to Empathy Cafe, you are here, being present, and you take the time to pause and feel, what you're feeling. And then, yeah, focus on the person who's speaking and be able to, hold space for them, and not giving them advice. Don't give them judgment, because, we all already have too many of those. So it's a few, basic ground rules, basically just to help people being heard and be able to say, wow, I didn't know I needed to talk about this, but that's so great to being heard, about this, about what I have to say. And our format is also a little bit different as far as, the speaker and listener goes. We said it's okay for listener to interrupt the speaker if they are listening, very actively. They have questions, or they may want to say, hey, can you clarify this, because you said this thing and I'm so curious to learn more about what that thing is. So it is okay for you to, as a listener, to ask questions to, help, the speaker explain more, or help you, understand them more. So that's, I think, something that's a bit different from other practice groups.
Yeah, and I really think so. I think the different flavors. One is like the workshop where we teach and you get exercise and you learn. The other one's like, it's like a therapy group where you share your feelings and get heard. This is not a therapy group, it's in between. It's really a practice. It's about learning and becoming better, but you're not learning because we're the expert teachers. You're learning by feedback. So when you're listening, and we indeed practice active listening by interrupting, asking questions, you get feedback from the host, which can be us, or you can get feedback from the speaker himself, and he or she can say, I really felt hurt the most when you said this, or I really liked it when you asked these questions. And this way you can learn from experience, feedback from the speaker. And I find it a really valuable format. And I think I written down some quotes from participants from before, which might be nice to share a few from. So I can give a few. So one is like, I learned to stop judging and just listen. So I guess this is really just the format of the intention is be present, pause your judgments for a while and just listen and see what happens. And that was one takeaway of the one. Another one that I've written down is to slow down. So the power when we're telling stories, we can get all quick and fast, and just to slow down a bit and ask, what are we feeling here? Really reveals new layers of, being listened to and being heard. Do you have any learnings you remember getting yourself or hearing participants say?
I have gotten feedback from one participant saying, like, that's a life-changing exercise, our space provided. They've learned something they weren't, I think, expecting to learn out of our session. And I think that's always the case in the space, that you don't know what you're going to get out of, but it's always something, like that touches you and that connects you. So I welcome anybody, would like to, practice these kind of communication, and come and practice with us.
Yeah, great. And also listening to others, like we feel lighter at the end, like we release something. We heard gratitude, happiness, and also teaching about listening. And I myself am practicing learning as well about, for me, one was interrupting. Like, I dare to interrupt a bit more, because when I tune out, I'm not really listening anymore. So it's a service for me and for the speaker to really check if I'm hearing it correctly. And so there are many little learnings and little feedbacks, and we kind of have good vibes. And we have both the happy stories where people celebrate, connection, love, friends, and we have like the sad stories or frustrating stories or struggles where people share what they struggle with. So it's not only bad stuff, it's also good stuff, which gives good vibes.
I think that's important for people to I think recognize that sometimes I think people may think, oh well, you only want to come and practice this if there's a problem in your life or something. And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true. For me, in my experience, like when I share, when there's something exciting and positive going on, and when I share with people, I tune into that experience a lot more, and it become more concrete, and I can remember that feeling in me a lot more. So in the, later on, when things aren't going so great, it's easier to remember, like, oh yeah, I remember that feeling. So I think that, you can practice this, whether things are going well or not in your life.
Yeah, great. So is there anything more you'd like to say about our empathy cafes?
Actually, one thing. I think both of us are, have also this background in some somatic experience. So so we also encourage that a lot, talking about, your body, how you feel this thing in your body. So that, even though this is a practice group and we use words to communicate, but we also encourage you to listen and observe, other things that are nonverbal. And I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, I really like that addition. I find it really powerful. So I could be, example I just make this up, would be, like, if I tell you about, I had this fight with my wife and it was so angry and this and this and that, but in a moment I'm feeling sad about it, then I will go, I will, as a listener, I will go to the sadness, like, and I would reflect back and say, hey, you say you're angry, but when you speak it, you seem sad. It's that. And then then it reveals like a whole new layers, and you get less into the story of things and more into the heart of things. And that's where the magic happens that I saw many years ago in the first workshop, and I really love to recreate in these empathy cafes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely have experiences like that as well, getting out of your logical mind, where, thoughts, judgment, and all that stuff sit, and drop down to, the, more spiritual level, more heart level. And I think that a lot of times, we don't hear signals, or we don't hear the messages coming out from these places. And I think this is a place where we can, help with that. Be like, hey, listen to your heart, like what's the kind of message it's trying to tell you? Like, maybe it's not words, but you can have a feeling. Like what does that feel like?
Yeah, great. So to finish off, I think we're welcoming both practitioners, or I would say practitioners, who want to practice speaking and listening, as well as new hosts, because we're hosting it together. And we were talking about opening it up for other hosts as well, so that we sometimes can be a bit more participant and have somebody else co-host it with us. So if you have any nonviolent communication experience and would like to host Empathy Cafe with us, let us know. And if you're wanting to practice speaking and listening, feel free to join the events and be welcome at the Empathy Cafe.
Yeah, very excited to have you, and hope to see you in our next event.